Hello and welcome back. Today we are going to look at Foston Hall Prison. We used to look at prisons a lot at the beginning of my channel, so I thought we'd go back to having a look at the few that we haven't looked at before, and this is one of them. As always, first we start with the history, the latest inspection findings, and then into the most notorious inmates. So let's get straight into the video. Foston Hall Prison is a women's closed category prison and young offenders institution. It's located in the village of Foston. The prison is operated by His Majesty's Prison Service. A closed prison is for women who do not require restricted status, but for whom escape must be made very difficult. A closed prison is a type of prison that houses inmates classified as Category A, B or C, which indicates a high level of security to prevent escapes. These prisons are designed for prisoners who cannot be trusted in open conditions, including those considered high risk such as females and young adults with restricted status. The focus in closed prisons is often on security and control, ensuring that inmates are kept in a secure environment. The original manor of Foston was held by the Agard family from the 14th to the 17th century. The 17th century manor house was destroyed by a fire in 1836, but some parts of that house did survive. It was redesigned in 1863. Its main two-storey front has 8 bays and an off-centre 3-storey tower. The house is now a Grade 2 listed building. The prison service acquired the hall and the grounds in 1953. During its history, Foston Hall served as a detention centre and immigration centre, but it closed in 1996. It was reopened on the 31st of July 1997 after having major refurbishment and building work. It reopened as a closed category female prison. The prison has 5 wings, C, D, E, F and T, and the First Night Centre. The prison accommodates both remand and convicted. It also has a healthcare centre. The prison provides inmates with work in the prison gardens, the gym, the textile and craft workshop and the kitchens, all which can lead to qualifications. In addition, the prison's education department offers MVQs in cleaning services and hairdressing, as well as basic and key skills learning. Their 2023 till 2024 annual report was published on the 4th of April 2025 by the Independent Monitoring Board. The positives reported were managers and staff have worked hard to provide a supportive environment for the prisoners held at Foston Hall. It observed strong leadership and teamwork in managing highly complex prisoners, and the number of self-harm incidents had decreased significantly in the reporting year. The substance-free living wing has been a very successful initiative. There has been a firm commitment to providing a full regime. During periods of staff pressure, priority has been given to maintaining work and education. The board observed considerable efforts being made to make the education environment working and inclusive. Like most of these reports, there were more negatives, but these are the main points that they made. It found that the high turnover of short-stay prisoners has resulted in more drugs and illicit items entering the prison. This meant that some prisoners got into debt and were subject to bullying. Prisoner-on-prisoner violence has increased. There was a high level of mental health need, with resources directed towards the most unwell. This left little support for those who experienced low-level depression and anxiety. Too many prisoners with complex mental health needs remained in prison longer than they should because of delayed transfers to secure hospitals. Ongoing problems with practical matters, including access to property and broken washing machines or dryers. This caused distress and frustration and had a negative impact on prisoners. Now we have gone over the history and the latest report, let's get into Foston Hall's most notorious inmates. And the first inmate we look at is Lauren Jeska. Jeska was born to Pauline and Graham Jameson in Lancaster. Graham Jameson is a mathematician at Lancaster University, and both parents are active in the Baptist Church. Lauren had 2 younger twin brothers, one of whom had mental health issues and took their own life. Jeska went to Lancaster Royal Grammar School, running on the cross-country team. They went on to Oxford University, where they studied physics, gaining a first. Jeska began studying for a doctorate there but dropped out of the course. They later attended Leeds University, gaining a master's in 2006 in gender, sexuality and queer theory. During Easter of 1998, Jeska came out to her parents as a trans woman, and she claimed to have had an orchiectomy in 2000. While at Leeds, she took up fell running, finding success very quickly in the women's category as a runner-up in the Blackshaw Heath fell race in 2008. She later joined Todd Morden Harriers Athletics Club and went on to win the 2010 Three Shires fell race, the 2011 Liverpool Half Marathon, the 2010, 2011 and 2012 English and 2012 British Fell Running Championships. Lauren moved to Wales and joined the Aberystwyth Athletics Club. In June 2015, UK Athletics told Jeska that she would be required to provide blood tests to prove that her hormone levels were within the normal female range. Jeska took exception as she felt it would reveal her transgender status to everyone. She failed to provide the samples required. In March 2016, she attacked Ralph Nibbs, a former professional rugby player and UK Athletics HR manager, with a weapon at Alexander Stadium in Birmingham. Jeska attacked Nibbs in the head and neck several times. One was a 2-centimetre laceration, which caused life-threatening blood loss and permanent nerve damage. Tim Begley and Kevin Taylor, employees of the UK Athletics who came to Nibbs' aid, were also attacked and injured. In September 2016, Jeska pleaded guilty to attempted murder plus 2 counts of assault occasioning actual bodily harm on Begley and Taylor, and weapons charges for knife possession. Jeska feared that UK Athletics would stop her competing against female athletes and strip her of her records. At the trial that was heard a week before the attack, Mr. Nibbs, who was a UK's athletics head of human resources and welfare, went to meet Jeska at her home to discuss the long-term issue with the sporting governing body. On the 22nd of March, she drove from her home in Wales to Birmingham with 2 weapons hidden in a rucksack and walked into the open plan UK Athletics office before launching her attack on Mr. Nibbs. One eyewitness said Jeska looked as though she was trying to skewer meat. Julie Warburton for Jeska told the court she feared further blood tests would reveal her transgender status to the public. She added that Jeska feels awful and was extremely shocked to hear of the effects of her actions. The judge, Simon Drew, said before passing sentence he had considered various psychiatric reports and the nature of the attack, but said it had been planned and executed with chilling precision, meaning Jeska posed a serious risk in the future. It was also heard that Mr. Nibbs suffered a stroke at the scene which blinded him in one eye. He now has limited vision in both eyes, rendering him disabled. His movement is restricted and he has difficulty eating due to his damage to the nerves. On the 15th of November 2016, she was scheduled to be detained in hospital under the Mental Health Act 1983, but the hearing was moved for a month pending future psychiatric reports. Jeska was found during these investigations to have autism. At the trial in 2017, Jeska was jailed for 18 years for the crimes. After the case, Lauren Jeska's parents said they were praying for the full physical and emotional recovery of Mr. Nibbs. During Jeska's mental health crisis, they said she felt traumatized and had flashbacks which caused fantasies of doing something drastic, and had twice asked for help from the NHS but was not referred for psychiatric help. Whatever the technical psychiatric diagnosis, it is clear to us as parents that the assault is only understandable as the consequence of a mental health crisis by the affair with the UK Athletics. Lauren Jeska remains in Foston Hall Prison. Our next inmate we look at is Georgina Henshaw, who was 36 years old when she took the life of colleague Philip Rolfe, who was 65, on the 7th of July 2017. Henshaw was in a booze-fueled rage and attacked Philip with a weapon. He then rang the police. He phoned his partner pleading, "Can you help me? I've been stabbed." His partner found him in his car clutching his chest, but later he passed away in hospital from internal bleeding. At her trial, the court heard how Henshaw took the life of him, who she met while working with him at a Toby Carvery pub and restaurant. Detectives found that she then panicked and spoke to a friend on the phone saying, "I've stabbed him. What if I've killed him?" Henshaw also sent a message to her victim and phoned him following the attack before police arrested her at her home near to where Mr. Rolfe was found. When her phone was seized, the police found the text messages sent to a friend just before the attack, and the weapon was also found by officers in a nearby garden. Detective Sergeant Nick Barnes of West Midlands Police said a baton was found at her home, which added to evidence showing she was prepared to use violence on the night. He also said this was a calculated, premeditated murder, where the text messages recovered from the killer's phone clearly demonstrated her desire to murder him. She has never shown any remorse. The text messages were conclusive and damning evidence, which clearly helped the jury to come to the natural conclusion that she was the only person responsible. She was arrested around 3 hours after she had taken his life. At the time, she said she hadn't seen him that night. The detective said that was a lie, and the footage shows her pretending to be shocked and in disbelief at his death. This was all an attempt to cover up what she had done. Some of the messages that she sent to her friend are as follows. "I'm set up to commit murder, to be honest, 'cause my so-called mate put a knife to my throat the other night for absolutely no reason. Just went to the shop with my mum, and I want to kill Phil. I am full of anger and want to cush him to death. I'm gonna lure him over." At her trial, the court heard that Henshaw launched her attack in a drink-fueled rage after claiming Phil had put a knife to her throat in the days leading up to the killing. But the court also heard she had never reported this to the police and gave no further explanation as to why she had attacked him. Prosecutor Rachel Brand told the court, "It is interesting. The defendant didn't suggest to anyone in the immediate aftermath of the attack that Phil had done something to her that night. She simply said she had stabbed him. She didn't give any reason why. When she spoke to police later, she was busy denying having seen him, pretending not to know he was injured, pretending not to know how he had been injured." At the trial, Phil's partner, Barbara Bradley, who had been with him for 8 years, also gave evidence. She said on the night he died, he was working 12 p.m. until finish. He finished at 9 p.m. At 12:45 a.m. he phoned. "I was in bed. He rang and I answered with, 'Hello.' He said, 'Can you help me? I have been stabbed.' I found his car and pulled up behind it. It was switched off. I could see Phil in the seat with his head back and his hand on his chest. I could see on the front of his shirt there was blood on it. I phoned 999. I got a towel out of my car and held it to his chest." His family also made a statement at the trial, saying, "On the 7th of July 2017, our lives changed forever when our father, grandfather and brother was suddenly taken from us by the evil action of Georgina Henshaw. Our father did nothing more other than to help her when she repaid him by stabbing him to death. We find some peace in the right verdict being reached in this court case, and the person responsible has been convicted of the crime she has committed. However, no sentence issued will bring our father, grandfather and brother back. Our family has been given the life sentence. We will never get to see our loved one again or share those special moments." It was also revealed at the trial she had a violent past. She was a heavy drinker and had once slashed a previous boyfriend with a knife. She was handed life in prison and remains there. Now we look at Jeska Lynas, who was involved in taking the life of Gemma Hayter. Gemma was born on the 13th of September 1982 and had her life taken on the 8th of August 2010. She was disabled and had her life taken by 3 people she considered to be her best friends in rugby. Jeska was one of those people. As a child, Gemma was found to be autistic. She was never formally diagnosed, but her family suspected she had a mental disability. At the age of 14, she began attending a school for disabled students. This was the first time that such an institution had given her an enrolment space. When she was an adult, an evaluator determined she was not autistic. She had asked the local government for assistance with employment and her general welfare. She was 27 years old when she had her life taken. She was tortured by Daniel Newstead, his girlfriend Chantal Booth, and Joe Boyer. Duncan Edwards and Jessica Lynas also conspired in the murder. These wicked people took advantage of Gemma's vulnerability. On the 7th of August 2010, Gemma made a joke about Booth being underage when the group visited a pub. This led them to be banned from the local drinking establishments after it was shared to Pub Watch. The group were angry by this, and this is what motivated the attack. All 5 of them originated from Rugby, and the attack began the next day when Gemma visited Chantal Booth's flat. They forced her to drink bodily fluids and threw her against a radiator, which broke Gemma's nose. She was also struck with a mop for a period of time and locked in a toilet. The group then took her out of Booth's flat and told her she was fine and she was going to go home. They instead took her to a railway embankment where the group put a bin liner on her head and then attacked her again. She was then struck in the back once with a knife. The group removed her clothes and attempted to ignite them. Gemma was found on the 9th of August 2010. Newstead, Booth and Boyer were 20, 22 and 18 years old at the time of their sentencing to life imprisonment. Their minimum tariffs were 20, 21 and 18 years. Edwards and Lynas received manslaughter convictions. Both of them were 19 years old at the time of their sentencing. Their sentences were 15 and 13 years. The sentencing for all 5 occurred at the Old Bailey. The BBC wrote an article saying that the sentences were longer than expected. The authorities wrote a serious case review, concluding that Gemma had been at risk and suggested that relevant agencies exchange details to prevent similar incidents from happening. Gemma's parents believe that local authorities had not done enough to care for her. The last known movement of Jessica Lynas was as of 2017. She was still being held at Foston Hall Prison. And now we look at a celebrity, Zara Phythian, who appeared in Doctor Strange. She essayed a 13-year-old girl together with her husband Victor Markey between 2005 and 2008. They went on trial in 2022. Her husband also essayed a 15-year-old girl on his own. The couple, who married in 2015, appeared at Nottingham Crown Court. Zara, who was 37 at the time, was jailed for 8 years, while her husband, who was 59, was sentenced to 14 years in prison. The judge said the husband was the driving force behind the abuse, but he also addressed the actress, saying, "Whilst you denied in cross-examination that you were besotted with Victor Markey, on the evidence I have heard, I am in no doubt that your deviance was shaped by the influence that he had upon you from an early age." At their trial, it was heard the couple met when he was a martial arts instructor, and then she went on to have a successful career in martial arts as a stuntwoman and actress. The pair both denied the charges, but they were jointly charged with 14 counts of SA with a child between 2005 and 2008. Her husband was also sentenced to 4 years for abusing a girl on his own and a further 10 years for SA of a second victim. The first victim spoke at the trial, saying that what they did to her nearly broke her mum. In a victim impact statement read to the court, the second victim thanked the first woman for telling the police. She said, "I was a cheeky and socially awkward 13-year-old who was an easy target for the pair. You robbed me of my innocence, corrupted me, leaving me unable to create good and balanced relationships." As the actress was led away to the cell, she waved at the public gallery, where a woman shouted, "I love you, Zara." She remains at Foston Hall Prison. The next case we look at is the case of Lorraine Thorpe, who grew up in poverty. She had a very hard childhood, and it's said that because of this she had violent episodes, but was highly manipulative from a young age. Lorraine Thorpe grew up in Ipswich. Like I said, she grew up in poverty. She lived with her father in a number of flats, but sometimes they would live in tents. She became associated with a group of middle-aged alcoholics who often engaged in violence and would fight each other. The group were also thieves and stole in order to be able to pay for their alcohol. She came to the attention of social services, but they could not keep track of her, and every time she was placed in a specially assigned school, she went back to her father. Her father was an alcoholic, and from a young age Lorraine Thorpe had the responsibility of caring for him. Her upbringing was said to have left her as a violent young woman, and like I said, she was known to be highly manipulative. Thorpe and a 41-year-old Paul Clark, who she met through drinking, took the life of a member of their social circle of drinkers in August 2009 after they fell out over a dog. They lured Rosalind Hunt to their flat in Ipswich and then tortured her. After days of this horrific treatment, Rosalind was still alive, so the pair took her life. On the 9th of August 2009, a member of the public rang police to raise concerns about Rosalind. Officers found her with her life taken when they entered her property in Victoria Street. Days after they took her life, the pair decided to take the life of Lorraine's own 43-year-old father, Desmond Thorpe, in order to silence him from implicating them in their first murder. Lorraine smothered her disabled father and then took his life. She later admitted to police that they would find her trainer prints on his head. Desmond was found by police on the 10th of August after they were told a man had died in Limerick Close. He was found only hours after the discovery of Rosalind's. Police immediately announced that they suspected the murders were linked and arrested both Clark and Lorraine Thorpe. On the 25th of August, they appeared in court charged with the murders. Clark and Thorpe were convicted of the murders at Ipswich Crown Court on the 3rd of August 2010. They both denied the charges but gave no evidence during their trial. Prosecution barrister said Rosalind Hunt became a prisoner in her own home and died from multiple injuries due to the continuous attacks that she suffered at their hands. Desmond Thorpe, who was killed days later, had been smothered for reasons known only to Clark and Thorpe. As part of the evidence against them, jurors heard evidence from a young friend of Thorpe's who said that she had confessed to her to being a murderer. A fellow inmate also testified that Thorpe had spoken about her father's murder to them on the anniversary of his killing. Clark was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 27 years, while Thorpe's sentences was delayed until September and was held at the Old Bailey, where she was sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 14 years. Thorpe and Clark had appeals against their convictions for the murder of Desmond Thorpe turned down in 2011, with judges at the Court of Appeal saying that they had no doubt the convictions were safe. The pair did not challenge their convictions for the murder of Rosalind Hunt. In September 2014, Paul Clark was found dead in his cell at Whitemoor Prison. It's believed he took his own life. Lorraine Thorpe has been imprisoned at Foston Hall. In March 2023, it was reported that Thorpe would have her first parole hearing. It was denied in October 2023, but she remains able for parole review in the future. Now we look at Karen Matthews, who at the time was seen as the victim and a heartbroken mother, but it turned out that she was the criminal. She reported her 9-year-old daughter Shannon Louise Matthews missing in West Yorkshire on the 19th of February 2008. The search for her became a major missing person police operation, and it was compared to the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. Shannon was actually found alive and well on the 14th of March 2008. At the time, it was reported that 9-year-old Shannon was last seen at 3:10 on the 19th of February 2008 outside her school, Westmoor Junior School. After a visit to Dewsbury Sports Centre swimming pool for a swimming lesson, the school was about half a mile away from her home. At 7:10, Karen Matthews rang the police to report her daughter missing after she had not returned home from school. West Yorkshire Police started the search, which involved more than 200 officers. The investigation into her disappearance was led by Detective Superintendent Andy Brennan. West Yorkshire Police questioned 1,500 motorists. They searched 3,000 houses. By the 5th of March, more than 250 officers and 60 detectives, which was about 10% of West Yorkshire's force operational strength, were involved in the investigation. It became the largest police investigation in West Yorkshire since the Yorkshire Ripper case, which happened 30 years earlier. Of 27 specialist victim recovery dogs in the UK, 16 were involved in the search for Shannon. The Sun newspaper offered a reward of £20,000 for information leading to Shannon's safe return. It was increased to £50,000 on the 10th of March, by which time she had been missing for 20 days. A business in Huddersfield, 9 miles away, offered £5,000. West Yorkshire Police created a website, Missing Shannon Matthews Appeal, and on the 7th of March released a photograph of Shannon on the website. The police released the recording of the 999 call made by Matthews reporting Shannon's disappearance. An official website, Help Us Find Shannon, including the Shannon Matthews Appeal, was launched on the 11th of March. Both websites were removed after Shannon was found. In the media, there was a lot of comparisons made to the Madeleine McCann case, saying that the McCanns and the parents and the family were more middle to upper class, they were doctors, and the Matthews were not. It was quoted as saying that Karen Matthews is not as elegant. It also said how the local community had pulled together, but that the hunt appeared less newsworthy than the most minor developments in the search for the McCanns, and that was because of the different social classes. On the 7th of March, Karen Matthews said on GMTV that she was certain that her 22-year-old boyfriend, Craig Meehan, was not involved in the kidnapping and he would not hurt anybody. Meehan was defended by Shannon's father, Leon Rose. Karen Matthews and her boyfriend appeared in an interview on BBC 4's Today's programme on the 12th of March. They were questioned about suggestions that Meehan had been violent towards Shannon, and on Karen Matthews having 7 children by at least 5 fathers. 2 of the children were registered as having unknown fathers. Thankfully, Shannon was found alive by Yorkshire Police at 12:30 on the 14th of March 2008, 24 days after she went missing. She was concealed in the base of a bed in a flat in Lydgate Gardens. Michael Donovan, the 39-year-old tenant of the flat, was arrested at the scene. Shannon was placed under police protection and cared for by the local social services. The police protection stopped after 72 hours, but Shannon remained in the care of the Kirklees Family Services on a voluntary basis. On the 15th of March, the police reported that Shannon had begun to recover after her ordeal. Specially trained officers questioned her to establish what had happened. The questioning lasted for several weeks and took place in 10-minute sessions at a special children's suite resembling a classroom. Donovan was charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment and committing acts intended to pervert the course of justice. On the 17th of March 2008, he appeared before Dewsbury magistrates on the 18th of March and was remanded in custody. Meehan was arrested on the 2nd of April on suspicion of possessing indecent images of children after police had examined computers in the home. He was remanded in custody. At a hearing on the 3rd of April, he was charged with 11 offences of possessing indecent images. On the 18th of April, he pleaded not guilty and elected to be tried by magistrate rather than by jury. On the 16th of September 2008, he was convicted on 11 counts of possessing images relating to 49 images of level 1, 2, 3 and 4 found on his computer after it was seized from the house he lived in with Karen Matthews. On the same day, he was sentenced to 20 weeks imprisonment but was released as he had spent longer on remand than the length of his sentence. Karen Matthews was arrested on the 6th of April on suspicion of attempting to pervert the course of justice. She was charged with child neglect and perverting the course of justice on the 8th of April. At a hearing on the 5th of September 2008, she was also charged with kidnapping and false imprisonment. Michael Donovan and Shannon's mother, Karen Matthews, staged Shannon's disappearance in a scheme to claim a £50,000 reward. Michael Donovan had given Shannon substances that made her sleepy and hid her in his bed. The plan was then that he had found Shannon and they would claim the £50,000 reward. Michael Donovan passed away in 2024. Karen Matthews was sent to Foston Hall Prison, where she only served half of her sentence and was released. The week after Donovan passed away, she was pictured outside of her home. As she left her flat, she said, "I'm innocent, leave me alone." Her boyfriend, Paul Sanders, told a newspaper, "She's over the moon that Donovan is dead. It's the best news she's had in ages. Karen hopes that he rots in hell. We both do. Donovan is scum. We hope that he had a painful death." Her boyfriend insisted on Karen's innocence, saying that it was Donovan who did the crime and that Matthews had nothing to do with it. Now we look at the case of a young mum who thought her children got in the way of her social life. Louise Porton was 22 years old when she took the lives of her two daughters, 3-year-old Lexi and 17-month-old Scarlett. This took place between August 2016 and November 2017, where they lived in Rugby. Porton's landlady said that she spent more and more time caring for the children, as Porton socialised instead of looking after them. The landlady testified that Porton would do whatever she could not to have them with her. Porton claimed to be a model and spent a large amount of time on dating apps and offering favours for money. The children's father did not have contact with them and had never met Scarlett. Porton would later admit she found that parenting was not one of the easiest things to do. In January 2018, Porton's daughter Lexi was admitted to hospital several times for illnesses which doctors could not explain. She was first taken to hospital on the 2nd of January, suffering from breathing difficulties, before being taken again on the 4th of January, both times being saved only by the work of paramedics. Her symptoms were consistent with deliberate airway obstruction, but doctors at the time did not consider this suspicion and believed that her condition was a chest infection. While her daughter was in hospital, Porton showed little concern for her child. She sent not safe for work photographs to a photographer from the toilets in the hospital and offered acts in return for money. Only a few days after Lexi had been discharged from hospital, Porton called 999 reporting her daughter was ill again. When the operator asked if the girl was breathing, Porton said no. When help arrived, it was found that Lexi had passed away. Despite the girl's death, Porton again showed little concern about her daughter, spending the next day accepting 41 friend requests on dating app Meet Me and also messaging men on another app, Badoo. She messaged one man, "My little girl passed away yesterday," as they chatted about tattoos. She also spent the day arranging to meet with men. A couple of weeks after Lexi passed away, Porton was heard laughing in the funeral parlour by the funeral arranger, who said she saw her using FaceTime speaking to a man. Only 2 days after Porton was heard laughing at the funeral parlour, her 17-month-old daughter Scarlett suddenly passed away. Porton had called 111, the non-emergency NHS line, reporting that her daughter was unwell, yet despite claiming that her daughter's condition didn't seem very urgent, Scarlett was found passed away. The paramedics arrived 9 minutes later. It was discovered the child had passed away for some time before Porton had called for help. Doctors again found the death was consistent with deliberate airway obstruction, and Porton again showed little concern at the sudden passing. Doctors could not find any natural reason why either of the children, let alone both, had passed away. Porton claimed that Scarlett had the flu. Suspicion was then raised on Porton, and police discovered that she made a series of incriminating internet searches throughout the month of January that indicated that she had taken the life of her 2 daughters and then attempted to cover it up. It was found that she had searched about death, breathing and drowning when she had originally admitted Lexi to hospital on the 2nd and 4th of January. She also researched how long it took bodies to go bad. After Lexi was then successfully treated and discharged, Porton searched, "Can you actually die if you have a blocked nose and cover your mouth with tape?" Police said it was clear from the evidence that Porton had twice tried to take the life of her daughter before eventually succeeding on the 15th of January. The evidence heavily indicated that the 2 children had passed away as a result of someone deliberately interfering with their breathing. Porton was brought to trial in 2019 for both of the murders and found guilty by the jury. The judge described Porton's actions as evil and calculated and said she was sure Porton had been responsible for events leading to Lexi's earlier admissions to hospital on the 2nd of January and the 4th of January, when her life was only saved by skilled paramedics. The judge also noted that Porton had only called emergency services when she knew her daughters had already passed away, saying that, "I am left in no doubt that you delayed calling for an ambulance until you were sure they were dead and could not be resuscitated." It was concluded that she had taken the lives of her 2 daughters because they had got in the way of her life. She was given a minimum tariff of 32 years imprisonment. She has never showed any remorse for her actions. She was sent to Foston Hall Prison. In February 2020, Porton's case was put into the news again after her mother, who had been tormented over the deaths of her grandchildren and had disowned her daughter, was found dead. It's believed that she took her own life. She remains in Foston Hall Prison. And that concludes our video today. It was nice to go back and do a prison that we haven't covered. I am looking at doing closed prisons as well as a few other prisons that we haven't looked at. There are quite a few young offenders institutions that I would like to cover. If you have any suggestions of prisons, please let me know in the comment section. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and until next time.